Hi there, I'm John Welch, and I'm a professor in the Department of Archaeology in the School of Resource and Environmental Management at SFU. Even though I'm an archaeologist, the conversations I'm the most interested in are about the future. I came to SFU less as an academic and more as a practitioner. My early job experience was working as a ranch hand and a crab fisher and a survey crew member working on the land. I eventually ended up working for the White Mountain Apache tribe as their archaeologist and historic preservation officer and set that office up. In that job, I got a great opportunity to work with loggers and miners and livestock owners and road builders and house builders to make sure that the tribe's interests in its cultural resources, archaeological and sacred places, were being taken care of and protected in the course of land and resource management. I made good on my pledge to move on once there were tribal members that could do my job. And that led me to apply for the position at SFU. And they were looking specifically for a professor that could work at the fuzzy boundaries between archaeology and resource and environmental management, between cultural and natural resource stewardship. Government systems don't always work in coordination with indigenous systems of land and resource management. In fact, those Western systems of land and resource management have excluded indigenous peoples from their lands and indigenous knowledge from taking care of lands and being involved in land and resource management activities and decision making. Getting governments to listen to Apaches and to appreciate the value of their experience and knowledge, time-tested and place-based, has started to really matter in terms of the quality of decision-making for forests, rangelands, and cultural resources in particular. Closer involvement by Apaches and other indigenous peoples has also had benefits for the people themselves, allowing them to reclaim shares of long-suppressed control over and connection to their territories. I did not see it this way until recently, but my career as a scholar and as an ally and advocate for indigenous peoples has mostly been about removing fences, especially those fences that have separated indigenous peoples from their territories and for making decisions about those territories in collaboration with government agencies. My current project is excavating an 1852 treaty between the Apaches and the United States. It's useful to keep in mind that in both Canada and the United States, courts are obligated to interpret treaties from the point of view of the indigenous people who signed the agreement. Apaches signed up for a marriage, a bridge towards unity between the Apache people and the people of the United States. The government used the treaty as a tool to separate Apache people from their land and to take control over that land and use it for primarily industrial purposes. This is currently a matter before the courts in the United States, and an impending Supreme Court decision will determine whether or not Apaches retain rights to the lands beyond their reservation boundaries. And if so, specifically what kinds of rights, including whether or not they can participate in decisions about land and resource management. Everyone who lives in beautiful British Columbia knows that treaties are important, but treaties can't be more important than our collective ability to take care of the land so that it can take care of us and provide for future generations. I think our collective future, which is certain to be complex and challenging, depends a good bit on our skill and creativity in unfencing. This would mean dismantling the attitudes, the rule systems, laws and regulations that separate not just indigenous people from their lands, but indigenous and non-indigenous communities, academic disciplines from one another, collaborative research and decision-making across previously fenced boundaries between indigenous and non-indigenous communities isn't just a good idea. In British Columbia, where the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples has been adopted, it's the law of the land. What are some challenges for industry and government as we move toward non-exclusive shared ownership of the province between indigenous and non-indigenous peoples? At least as importantly, what are some of the opportunities?